BJ Futrell back on the podcast. Long overdue, my friend.
Ryan, thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I'm feeling like Jordan in '95, man. I'm back, baby.
Let's go. So for folks who don't know, BJ's back in Chicago after a decade away. Just took a job at Northwestern. You've been at Penn for the last 2 years. Man, how long's this been in the works for? How'd this come about? I'm so excited.
Man, that's like really honestly, like I've heard somebody say, like, if you can explain it, then God didn't do it. And I have to say this is definitely an answered prayer, but and a God-given opportunity. But I really it's really tough to even kind of pinpoint. But essentially I've been away from the Chicagoland area for over a decade. So from going back when I finished my master's degree at the University of Illinois, I then spent time at the Cliff King Wrestling Club in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Trained there and lived there for a couple years, and then life ended up taking me out to Philadelphia. They were starting up the PRTC. Brandon Slay had and encouraged me and inspired me to come out and take the leap of faith, and it was something I was really excited about, and had some really great experiences out on the East Coast. I retired, spent the year coaching at the Naval Academy, came back to Philadelphia, and was helping an amazing organization in Beat the Streets Philadelphia. Then finally joined the staff, and now I'm super grateful and excited that life has presented me with this opportunity to be able to just get back closer to home and closer to my roots. So yeah.
Back in the Big Ten. Let's go. Come on now. I love the state of Illinois, and I love when we get programs with good coaches, and Storniolo's been doing a tremendous job at Northwestern for 5-6 years, putting a lot of guys at the tournament. So man, just so pumped you're back and that you took that role. And you look at your time at Penn, man, you've been out there for a while. I feel like, is that like the most you spent anywhere besides Champaign, like Philadelphia area?
I would have to say so. Like it's been total time here in Philadelphia. It's been about 7 years or so.
Yeah.
And I feel like during that time, I was able to grow a lot as a young man, as a leader, as a wrestler, but also as a coach. And so it's really been just enriching opportunity. I met my wife here. We started a family. We got married, bought our first house here. And so, like it was a lot of chapters that were established.
Yeah.
And now, like I said, it's been 10 years since I've been back in the Chicago area. And I have a lot of pride in just being from Illinois,
Same.
Before we get too deep into the podcast, I gotta say, like, I gotta give you your flowers, man. Like, so number one, I don't know if most people know this. Like, me and Ryan, we go back to, I want to say it was like what, 03, 02, like schoolboy
duels, Indy.
Yeah, Illinois national team, and that was our first time ever interacting. But then, I mean, obviously since then you've grown tremendously, and you've exploded on this podcast scene. And coming up on nearly 500 podcasts, and like the docu-series from the Slaying Satiev, Assembly Fall, the Gable, like it just goes on and on and on. It's like essentially, like basically, you're like the Drake of wrestling podcasts. Like you can't miss. You can't miss. So,
I'm
like,
humbled, man. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be on this podcast that I'm actually like a fan of, and I listen to actively. So just to see your growth over the last few years from when you were starting out, and just how not only just the interviews and the guests that you're able to get on, but also just the quality and the depth of the interviews. So I think if no matter who you are in the wrestling community, whether you're a fan or coach, athlete, there's something of value that you can gain, and that's because of your diligence and your commitment to excellence. So thank you, Ryan, for all that you're doing for the sport and through this podcast.
Man, thank you so much. I'm touched and just humbled by your words, and I'm so glad you listened to the show. And I think about probably one of my favorite interviews all time is with your old head man Quintrell Harrell for the Tony Davis documentary. So yeah, man, it's been an awesome journey. And it's funny you talk about that schoolboy duels tournament, man. That was, I haven't thought about that in a long time. So yeah, that is where it went back. And folks, let me tell you though, I knew about BJ Futrell long before that Midwest Classic that winter. I got to set the stage here. The Twisters have been out of the IKWF for quite some time due to some political infighting. or it was IWF. That's what it was. IWF, IKWF didn't get along. IWF folds. My 7th grade year, the Twisters come back to the IKWF. All we'd heard is rumors. We'd never seen it, never heard anything about it. We never actually saw it. We're at the Midwest Classic, big tournament in Tinley Park, single elimination. In rolls in BJ Futrell, like just the meanest mug you've ever seen in your life. I've never seen a smile, the most serious face ever. And behind him is like an army of Twisters. And that was my first time seeing the Twisters. Ryan Prater put me out of that tournament. And dude, that year you guys came back. I don't know if you won the IKWF as a team, but made a mark on me, man. And I remember watching you and I'm like, that dude's all business. And it was just an honor to be on that team with you that summer and to watch you guys in action, man. Those were some teams. Cartis Lloyd, Mario Morgan. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, like the tradition speaks for itself. If you're in the state of Illinois or outside of it, and you've probably heard of the Twisters at some point, and just speaking of giving flowers, just Coach Quint, and not only Coach Quint, but it's so many other coaches too that are behind the scenes. Coach Sean Waller, he's a guy that is not in the spotlight. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight, but he's been like Coach Quint's right-hand man for a long time, and they've had a tremendous, profound impact on a lot of young men's lives, and yeah, I just can't say enough about Coach Quinn and just how great of a man he is and how he's changed the life trajectory of a lot of men.
Who is the other coach you mentioned?
Coach Sean Waller.
He's
I actually talked to him recently when it was finally a done deal and I knew I was coming back to the area. We got to catch up and I got to coach Coach Quinn and that's one of the things that I'm really excited about too is after being away for so long, like I'm excited about rekindling a lot of relationships. And we talked about the national dual teams, like a lot of the coaches that were coaching some of those Illinois national dual teams from schoolboy to junior, even the girls, I have relationships, pre-existing relationships with a lot of those people. So I'm excited about that. And that's kind of like where some of my Illinois pride like started, because we were part of some of those teams that started the tradition and expectation that Illinois will go to those dual teams and do extremely well. And I think it was like the I want to say 06, 07, one of those teams, those junior teams that were on, and we won. And I would put that team up against anybody because that team was just loaded with talent. I think you had myself, Max Nowry, John Morrison, Jimmy Kennedy, Albert White, Jerome Ward,
Benefiel,
Conrad Poles. I mean, like it was like boom, 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 boom. Christian Brantley, like stud after stud after stud. So
yeah. It was a great time to be around Team Illinois because that schoolboy team that we were on might have been like the last one they put together. Kind of, there wasn't like a training camp for it. Like now it's freaking training camps. It's an official thing. And to your point though, that time, those junior and cadet Fargo teams were starting to get real legit. And then Illinois won. I mean, they've won Greco, I think, God knows how many times, freestyle many times during that era. And I just had Coach Bormet on, and he was talking about when he was at overtime, and it's like, were you an overtime guy at all?
Harvey Twisters do it through and through, baby.
Even in high school?
Never was an overtime guy, but I got all the respect in the world for Coach Bormet. He coached some of those national dual teams too, and he's obviously an amazing leader, great friend, and a mentor. And I would say Coach Powell too. Like Coach Powell, he coached some of those Greco teams, and I think it was one year, like we were wrestling Missouri in the finals, and like this was like my first time like spending time around Coach Powell. But before the finals, he gave like this, still to this day, I think one of the greatest inspirational speeches before the finals. And like I already knew, like I was pretty confident going to this match, but after that speech, I was like, man, I'm about to mess this kid up. Like I can't lose after a speech like that. So big credit to Coach Powell and everything he's doing right now with Beat the Street Chicago. It's really amazing.
Well, I know he's seen you going to Northwestern. He's already probably putting his tentacles out there to get you involved and Beat the Street Chicago somehow, because I know you were involved out in Philly, and that's where it started with the Motter brothers, and they're the example, New York too. But Coach Powell and his right hand lady, Kathy Yen, what they've been doing in Chicago, nothing short of amazing. Have you been to the facility yet?
No, I haven't been to the facility yet, but like I've already,
Wow.
made contact with
Yeah.
Coach Powell. We've talked and conversed, and I'm excited. I think just getting involved with the community is so important, and just with our proximity, Northwestern's proximity to the Beat the Streets facility, I think it's a non-brainer. I
Yeah.
really believe that you can't be the best version of yourself without serving others, and so getting involved within the community, I think it's kind of like our mandate as people. I truly believe like it's our mandate to plant trees under which shade we do not sit, and so if you think about a tree um, an apple like an apple tree, like the fruit that comes from a tree is not meant for the tree itself, it's meant for other people. And so we all have gifts, talents, time that we can use to benefit other people and make the world a better place. So I'm excited to be able to plug back into the
Yeah.
community where where it all started for me. Like my parents are still in the south suburb area. So they're about 50 miles from Northwestern, and Mount Carmel is about like 20 miles from
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern. So I'm super excited to plug back into this community.
Man, it's so good to have you. And are your folks still in the same house you grew up in? Are they one of
Yes,
those?
they are. Yeah, I'm
See?
one of the probably the rare people that never moved. So I'm the youngest of four. I have three older sisters, and yeah, so I'm super excited to get back, and part of the reason too is just being back closer to family. Like not only is this an amazing opportunity to coach, but just the opportunity. Like some people ask, like, what was the like big reason? Like, and I kind of sometimes I phrase it like I didn't want to be a thief,
Mm-hmm.
and by that I mean I didn't want to rob my family or myself the opportunity to have those heart connections with my family. My parents are not getting any younger, and my wife is actually from Minnesota, so it's back closer to home for both of us. And I don't know
That's
if not a
perfect.
lot of people know this, but my dad actually he in the last few years he's gone through some serious health complications, and I asked him if it was okay to share this, and he said it was fine. But essentially, like years and years ago, he was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that was attacking his lungs. Essentially, it was in remission for a long time, but then say around like 2019, it came back and with a vengeance.
Mm.
And so from 2019 till up until about a year ago, like his health like really took a decline, and it was a really like kind of like scary time for me and my family. Like he was basically essentially oxygen dependent. He was in stage 4 of this disease, and really was really like unable to do a lot of things physically that to live a normal like quality of life, like walking.
Mm-hmm.
See, he was oxygen dependent. Like it was a lot, but by God's grace, he was able to get on a transplant list, and he received a bilateral lung transplant from Northwestern Hospital, actually. So
Wow.
big thank you to all the doctors, at Northwestern and everybody that's been involved, and prayers go out to the families that he got the donation from.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just completely by God's grace, because people usually are on those lists for years and years, but he from the time that he got on the transplant list to the time that he got the surgery was about a month. So just complete God's favor in that situation, and now he's doing a lot better. So, but yeah, it was a
Wow.
scary point
Man.
in time, because like my wife was pregnant at the time, like with my son, and I'm like all the way on the East Coast. Like it's like I can't really do much to help. But
Mm-hmm.
credit to my mom too. She's just an amazing woman, amazing wife. She really um, complements my dad's strengths and covers his weaknesses, and she's been an amazing partner for him as he's been on this journey. So,
Wow. Well, man, I'm
and
so
I'll just say too, they
yeah,
just
please.
celebrated 43 years of marriage too. So, shout out to mom and dad Futrell, moms and pops, on
Wow.
celebrating 43 years. I actually was in Chicago a couple of days ago, and I got to take them to breakfast. So, that was a special honor for me.
Man. You're a good son, BJ. I'm so glad your dad got the transplant. I just know just from seeing you at tournaments and even knowing you as an adult, your dad, was a pastor, is a pastor, huge source of inspiration in your life, and like just kind of like a real rock. And so I can't even imagine what you went through, but man, great that he received the surgery, and even better that you're coming back to spend more time with him. And you just have the one son right now?
Yeah, we just got the 19
Is that
month
the
old.
one?
He's full of energy. His motor skills are elite, I'll say, at this point. So he's a lot to keep up with.
Let's go.
And people say like once you've wrestled, everything is easy. Everything in life is easy. But I'll say like once you've been married to a wrestling coach, then everything in life is easy. So huge credit to my wife Beza, and just being an amazing partner, amazing mother. She's extremely intelligent, but not only is she intelligent, but she's wise, and she knows how to apply discernment to her intelligence, and
Mm-hmm.
she's just an amazing partner. So every time I'm on the road, like she has a career of her own, but she's an amazing mother, and I'd never have to worry about my son when he's in her care. So I don't know if she could say the same, but
What about
but
you said yeah, being married to a wrestling coach is the hardest. What about being a parent and like getting up? I mean, how has that been? Has it been worse than you expected, the sleep deprivation, or has it been
uh,
about what you thought?
I would say like we've been pretty blessed in regard. I would say the first year was tough, but after that we were doing some sleep training, like reading up on everything that we could do to help the guy sleep and in his process. So after the first year, it got quite a bit better. He actually a little sick right now, but so I'm
Man.
probably staying home with him today. Not sending him to daycare, but he's like parenting is amazing. Like I just recently read a book by Brian Laritz called The Dad Difference, and he talks about how children are the deposits we make. The deposits we make into the world for a time in which we will not see, and yeah, it's an amazing journey just to be a dad and to see him grow and learn, and to kind of go through life, and how I'm essentially like the yeah, such play
Man.
a pivotal role just within my parents, within my presence.
Yeah.
So
I can't even imagine how exciting it's gonna be if I ever have my own kids. So I'll be picking your brain, man, and getting your books. I wrote that one down, Dad Difference.
yeah, it's
Now,
amazing.
you talk about, your father's been through some health issues, and he's hopefully on on the on the way up. Was he the one who got you involved with wrestling? Was he a wrestler?
Yeah, he's definitely on the way up now. He's like getting like 5, 6 miles a day now. Like he's like an
What
amazing
an
performer.
animal.
Yeah, he's doing
God.
great. So I mean, yeah, it's
Awesome.
truly a blessing, and but yeah, this journey of wrestling started with me and my dad. He started wrestling in high school, and he was a part of those Bloom Trail teams that back in the day in the state of Illinois when there were only two classes.
Let's go. Let's go.
Some of those public schools were actually winning state titles. So I think I want to say his junior senior year, they won it as a team with only like two or three guys at the state tournament, but they
Wow.
did an amazing job. So his junior year, he took second, and then he won it his senior year. And so yeah, but this journey for me kind of started as just something to do with my dad, and he had three girls at the time, and so he was praying for a boy. He got a boy, and I was his experiment. But we've shared some amazing memories over the years. So
Man, I remember seeing a picture of you one time. And it was like, remember when they had the kickoff classic Tulsa and Reno, and that was like the Trinity?
mhm.
And I could have, man, you must have had 10 of those things. It was crazy. It was crazy, man.
Yeah, I
Um,
got a trophy around here sitting around. But one more that I don't have yet is the wrestling changed my life podcast fan of the week. I'm
okay.
still
Okay.
waiting on that one. I'm hoping to
Okay.
add that one to the resume one day. One day. But
I think we can make that happen.
no, but my dad has been influential more than anybody else, and just his presence in my life, not just in wrestling, but and just showing me what it is to be a man. He as well as my mom, he fathered me really well, giving me all the tools that I need in order
Yeah.
be successful and be able to maneuver through life. And he made a lot of sacrifices. My mom made a lot of sacrifices, and I wouldn't be here without their love and their support over my lifetime.
And I think that's what makes you such a great coach is that you've been around so many powerful leaders, whether it's Coach Quint, your father, all the guys at Carmel, Illinois, and even Coach Barnett at Michigan. Like you've seen, and not to mention, I mean, we even talked about Penn. I love Reina and the Penn group. We got to talk about those guys. But so it's like you've had all these great mentors around, and now as a coach, I can tell just by talking to you, you take it serious, and it's about. I mean, not that all coaches don't, but like you're really about development of these guys, and you see it as like a calling for you to be a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all starts with relationship. I think championship performances are built on trust, and yeah, I think now more than ever, it's required of coaches to really take the time to get to know their athletes, to build those personal relationships, and to it has to for me it has to be about more than wrestling. Like I'm really passionate about taking that holistic approach. I feel like personally, I feel like if the only thing I ever do is help a guy win wrestling matches, I feel like I'm failing as a coach.
Hmm.
Like I feel like it's so many more important things in life. And not to say that wrestling is not important, because it's super important. I'm super competitive. I want to win. But I think as a coach, especially a college coach at this stage of a young man's life, this is such a pivotal time where they're figuring out who they are as people and what kind of leaders they will be, what kind of men they will be, maybe even what kind of fathers and husbands they'll be. And
Hmm.
so to play an impactful role in that type of um, development process as a young man, I think is huge. And so that's something that I take really seriously. And so all of my athletes, that's something that I'm really intentional about being. I realize
Yeah.
that words are powerful, and I try to lead from a place of emotional intelligence and helping my athletes and just being there for them. And at the end of the day, like you fight harder for people that you feel connected to, and
Hmm.
so on both sides. And so I think those relationships are super important. So that's yeah, that's kind of
We
my
can
philosophy.
we can all relate to that. Like you've had a coach or something you want to show out for, or you want to, do like you said with Coach Powell, even right that speech, like you want to you want to lay it out there for him. And I
Exactly.
felt the same with him just talking to him on the phone sometimes. And Coach Medlin, I feel the same way about. But yeah, so it's like that the establishment of the relationship is kind of how you see it, and it's beyond just wrestling. Is that something you picked up from Coach Reina? I'm curious what you picked up from him during your time, because that's one of the more well-spoken, just thoughtful people I've ever connected with through this podcast. I can't say enough about Coach Reina.
Yeah, I would say like number one, just huge honor and respect for Roger and just him even allowing me just the opportunity at Penn. I feel
Hmm.
like I've grown so much like from that opportunity and experience, and I definitely wouldn't be as prepared as I am right now to step into this role in Northwestern if I wasn't under Roger's leadership. So credit to him. Like I would say like kind of like when I talked about connection and I think that's kind of how our journey started with me and Roger. It started as an RTC athlete, and he was part of the process of recruiting me to Philadelphia. And I think our relationship really took another level when one time I just saw him in the wrestling room, and I think it was before a workout, after a workout, and his mind is usually going like
Yeah.
like he's thinking about something, he's thinking about raising money, he's thinking about how he can really build this into a perennial program. And I just took the time to ask him, said, hey, like it's one thing for somebody to ask how are you doing. I think it's another level of a question to ask, how's your heart doing? And that's what I asked him in that moment. I said, Roger, how's your heart doing? And I think it kind of took him aback a little bit, because that's not a common question to ask somebody. And so, I mean, from there, our relationship just kind of took off, and he was in the corner for me when I made the U.S. national team for the first time. He when I retired from wrestling, he took the time to sit down with me and kind of talk through options and thinking about where I can take my career, which direction I can take my career. And
Hmm.
so he
Wow.
was at my wedding. Like it's so many examples I could give, but I'm really appreciative of Roger and just really yeah, just his approach, the CEO approach, I guess you could say. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a lot to learn. He has a lot of wisdom and like yeah, I mean that was part of the hard part of leaving Penn. Is just I know the guys that are on the team that just the connections and the relationships that were established and built and the recruits that we have coming in and like where the program is headed. That was hard.
Crazy.
So
The
I want to
momentum,
be
right?
sensitive to that. But yeah, but it was a decision that I had to make. So yeah.
Well, I saw you guys were building at Penn, and it was. I mean, it's the momentum is legit, and you can see it in the staff that Coach Reina brought in. And for folks who don't know, Coach Reina was at Penn forever, left and came back, and that's why the marketing campaign is called the Movement, right? And it's not just Penn, it's Drexel, it's Beat the Streets Philly, it's the Penn RTC, and like you look at the Penn RTC, it's one of the best RTCs in the country. The great Jordan Burroughs is there. You got Mark Hall there. It's like all this. They call it the ecosystem. Like all this energy is like building around Penn and specifically Philly, and you were right in the center of that.
Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. Like I said, big credit to Roger, big credit to Brian Pearsall. I learned a lot from him. Mark Hall, and obviously Coach Slay. He was a big reason why I first initially came to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably Penn Wrestling, the Philadelphia ecosystem biggest secret is Kevin McGuigan, and so big credit to
Wrestling
Kevin.
Philly.
Yeah, I call him the quarterback. He's the quarterback of the whole operation, and he's making moves and making things happen that are unparalleled. His dedication and commitment, and he has such a wealth of experience just from other things. Like he's an invaluable, like a very valuable resource to the program. So thanks to Kevin.
His energy, like that's I gotta step back and just think sometimes like how lucky we are in wrestling to be around some of these people who are like so positive and upbeat. And
Yeah.
the guy's just there's a lot of negativity out there, but if you go to his wrestling Twitter, it's all positivity. And he actually stands by, like, if someone asks him like what his favorite sports team is, some people say the Phillies, the 76ers. He says the Penn RTC, and he's dead serious about it. He's a nut,
Yeah,
man. I freaking love that about him.
yeah,
God. Yeah, he and so that's what you're leaving. You're coming to Northwestern, you
yeah.
know, and now we're talking Big Ten country. Now we're talking the perennial conference in college wrestling by a lot. And Northwestern's right in the thick of it. And we're also talking about now you're recruiting from your home state. Like it's just so much exciting things going on with it. The one thing I want to ask you about, though, I want to dig into some old IHSA brackets because I forgot that you were a part of the 2006 Madness bracket.
Mhm.
This bracket, I'm sure you see it once in a while, but like every 2 years or so, I feel like I post it. The 2006 IHSA 103 bracket, folks, go ahead and do your favor and take a look at it. It's absolutely insane. You were a sophomore, you took fifth,
Mhm.
and here I'm looking at it now. BJ Futrell, sophomore, 40-4. This bracket, I mean, does this come up amongst your Philly friends ever, or is this more of like an Illinois secret how
I,
nasty this bracket was?
I'm very familiar with the bracket, but
Are you? Yeah.
um,
Daryl
and yeah,
Thomas. I mean, hit folks with it. Like,
was
what are some of the highlights?
it was definitely loaded. But I'll start off by saying like I still wasn't a full 103 pounder yet at this point. So most
No.
people don't know, like I started my high school career, my freshman year, I weighed in at the state tournament at 85 pounds. So my sophomore year, I bulked up a little bit, but I was probably like 94, 95 pounds still my sophomore year. And so it took me 3 years to become a full size 103 pounder. But yeah, this bracket, I think, and one of the else thing too, like with this bracket, like it had walkovers. I was so disappointed with the walkover. Like I think I
Yeah.
dropped my first match. I had only lost at this point. I had only lost like 2 matches in the state of Illinois to I think it was to Spangler, or maybe one match in Illinois to Spangler. I lost 2 matches in Ohio at the Midwest Classic to the same guy,
Okay.
Greensburg Salem. Not that we remember these
Not that
things.
you remember
Yeah,
anything.
not that we remember these things, but yeah, and then yeah, I think I lost to Kaz Hashimoto first round, and then came back, but then it was a walkover, so I didn't even get to wrestle him again. It was just I'm going for
Yeah.
fifth. I was like, hey, what the heck? But
Right.
wrestled a tough Joey Norton for fifth and sixth. He was somebody that the previous year he had beaten me every time, and then I got the better of that match. And I think that kind of set the stage for the next year when I came in, and really the last 2 years, because I think after that Kaz Hashimoto match, I never lost another match in the state of Illinois. And I don't think I ever gave up another offensive point my last
That's
2 years of high school. So
that is a
yeah,
stupid stat. I actually wrote it down. 85 matches without being scored on after that tournament. It's like that doesn't even make sense to me. Because the next year you beat John Morrison in the finals, one of the greats from that era as well, multiple time All-American from Oklahoma State, and he was in that 2006 bracket. So, and then your senior year you walked through it, but man, that's that era was just so tough. I'm sure everyone from every state thinks that their era was tough. I really do believe that. After having this podcast, everyone thinks that. Like some guy from Pennsylvania in the 80s, like they're talking about this, and I'm like, yeah, it just wasn't like Illinois in the 2000s. But I really do. When you look at this bracket and look at the guys who went on to be All-Americans, Olympians, like Max Nowry, Olympian, he's in this bracket. He didn't place, right? It's like it's
Ellis
crazy.
Holman, Olympian.
Olympian. So
Yeah.
two Olympians didn't place in this 103 bracket. And oh my god, it's just crazy to look at. So just some quick highlights. Chris Spangler wins, Tony Ramos second, third and fourth. Guys who may not be known outside of Illinois, but I definitely remember these guys. Kaz Hashimoto, Tyler Johnson, and then you took fifth. But the guys who didn't place, to me, it's even crazier. Like Ryan Yout didn't place. That kid was a stud. Another name that was always tough back then, Justin Farmer. I mean, it's not Joe Roth, freaking nuts, man. And there's BJ in there taking a fifth, and like you said, after that, just set fire to the state of Illinois. And it's no surprise because everyone from the IKWF days knows you for like insane number of kid state titles. I don't even know how many it was. How many?
It depends. Are you counting IWF or
See,
IK?
that's
This
the
is like
whole.
this
That's
is
the.
the whole big thing.
If
But
you guys wouldn't have left, if you can count both, would you have broke
it was
Tony's
five.
record? Five. It would have
It
been
was five.
five. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's. Yeah.
Five.
Count them. Man, that's so funny. It's just crazy all the how far we all go back, and just how it's full circle, right? You see some of these guys now and they still talk about the same tournaments that we're talking about, right? It's like yeah. How did you decide to go to Carmel? Is that just a tradition of the Twister Mount Carmel pipeline, or was there something else going on there?
Man, that was a really tough decision for me. So if I would have went to school in my local area, I would have went to Ritchie's High School. That's the school that all three of my older sisters attended. It was probably like a mile and a half away from my home. And I just kind of sat down with my dad. We were having these deep conversations, and we were talking about and thinking about like what would be the next steps that I would take in my career, and what would also just position me, the best for success, not only in wrestling, but um, in life, and prepare me and challenge me academically. And education is something that my parents always teach. They let me know that uh, this is a thing, paramount thing. This is number one. You're a student athlete first. So we came down to kind of three pots or three hats. It was De La Salle, St. Rita, or Mount Carmel. I took
Saint
shadow days
Rita.
to all three of those schools. Yeah.
Oh boy,
and
that would have been interesting. Okay.
and
Okay.
uh, and and it, for me, like at pretty early on, I feel like I was able to eliminate De La Salle for whatever reason, and it really came down to Mount Carmel or St. Rita for me, and it was tough because Albert White, one of my best friends, and who I still talk to every day today, right now, like
Really?
that he was at St. Rita. Jerome Ward was at St. Rita. I think Obi Simpson was another guy that I looked to at St. Rita, and then there was Carmel, and it was the tradition and Mario Morgan, and like just thinking about Joe Williams, C.J. Williams, like all of these, Cassio Pero, who's one of my best friends still to this day as well. All of these like great guys in tradition, and um, it had to be Carmel. It just had to be Carmel. And then I felt like I was torn. Like, man, I wish I could spend 2 years here and 2 years here. But
Yeah.
my dad let me know, like, hey, we start somewhere, we finish it. And I think that's a valuable life lesson too. Like, it's finishing what you started. But yeah, it was a blessing of our opportunity to to go to Mount Carmel, be a man of Carmel, and yeah, I'm excited to plug back into that community as well.
And St. Rita during that time, they were a dominant team in the
Yeah,
state,
yeah.
right? Steve
Mhm.
Zimmerman, yeah, Albert White, of course. I mean, crazy. I didn't know you were that close to going to St. Rita. That's
Yeah,
interesting. That
was
would have been
so
interesting.
so so I actually like in order to get to Mount Carmel, this is just the level of discipline, and I had to do a lot of growing up fast because I was taking an hour train ride every day to get to school, back and forth, an hour.
No,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
yourself?
By like I said, I would get to the train by myself, or my dad would drive me to the train, and then once I got pretty much to the train station, it's a lot of kids that travel from not just the south suburbs, but also Indiana and all over the
For
state
high school.
to get to Mount Carmel. Yeah, so
Oh my
once I
god.
pretty much got to the train station, I was rarely ever by myself, but yeah, it was a big commitment. So going to morning practices, I was getting up pretty early to get there,
Wow.
and Jason Erwinski. Well, I had two coaches actually. Ben Gerdes was the original coach that I had when I was there, and then Jason Erwinski was there for the second part of my career while I was at Mount Carmel. He's a Northwestern grad, and so yeah, I'm excited to connect back with him too. I know he's doing some amazing things on the youth circuit.
You just read my mind. I was just thinking, who were the Mount Carmel coaches during that time? Because I could not place it. And now they're under a really good leadership. Um, Search This is doing some great things, and they have some studs. I love that Seth Mendoza kid. He's amazing. He's tough, man. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to move on from the topic. But I was actually wondering who the coaches were when you were there, and so Ben Gerdes, Jason Erwinski. Oh, and you also said Cassio Pro and Albert. I was trying to think this. Let's put a call out right now. They've been summoned to the podcast. I'd love to get both of those
Ooh,
guys on.
yeah.
If now I do want to follow up you to get both of those guys on though, because Albert White, that was a just a high school machine. I mean, I it was unbelievable to watch him wrestle. And Cassio Pero, I don't remember watching him, but I know that Poeta and all those guys from that Illinois era, they love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, before we move on, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that I do want to get both of those guys on. Um, but
We'll
yeah,
make
so awesome. And for for folks who most people probably know this, most don't, but Harvey Twisters, a lot of their great studs from the 90s all went to Mount Carmel, which is this all boys Catholic school in the south side of the city, not south side suburbs, which is where the Twisters are. So for you to get there, that's a haul to get there. And once you got there, any regrets, or did you love it from the first day?
I think different people have different experiences, but personally, I had an amazing experience. I feel like I grew a lot, and I think it's kind of what you make of it. I
Yeah.
think some people are maybe thrown off a little bit by it being all boys, but for me, I know it helped narrow my focus and help keep me focused on the task at hand. Like I was involved a lot too. Like I said, I think it's what you make of it. So during my time there, I was the president of student council. I was the president of our senior leadership club, and yeah, I was just involved in quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made the best
I
of
know the all boys aspect of it did not sit well for Tony Davis.
it.
He said that was not something that was explained to him ahead of time. And no, I'm kidding, but he said that was a real shock for him. And I used to think that when because you guys would come down to the Geneseo Bi-State tournament, and I don't know if Mount Carmel is still going to that when you were there, but forever Mount Carmel came to the tournament that my high school hosted, and so was very familiar with
That
that
was a
program.
big tournament. That was a big tournament in Illinois. Yeah,
Yeah,
we never went when I was there, but yeah, I like when I was in the like seventh, eighth grade, thinking about starting to have those conversations where I'm going. Like that tournament was well known and well respected for sure.
yeah, we've talked about it before, but John Starzig and Nate Moore's fathers got into a little scrap in the stands one year. Those were some great matches. And so when you look at kind of your current post moving forward at Northwestern, are you in the Windy yet? Are you still out in PA wrapping things up?
No, we're still tying up some loose ends here. Our house actually goes live on the market today, I
Let's
believe.
go, folks.
House Saturday, Sunday. So hopefully, that does well, and we close this chapter. And then, like I said, I was out in Chicago just a couple days ago, and trying to figure out where we're going to lay our heads at. So first things first, getting that. But also, I had the opportunity to meet some of the guys on the team and start to build some of those relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like going back, like that's one of the things that I was mentioning to them, that I feel like just in regards to connection, like you the best what's uh, the best leadership flows not out of position but out of relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
so you cannot lead effectively those of you who you are not connected to intimately. And so I wanted to just kind of set the stage for some of the guys that I was able to meet that was still in town.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a little bit different of a system as far as how schooling works, because it's a quarter system. So we don't start school till September 20th. So it's a little bit later of a start. So guys get a little bit more time. But they were just wrapping up a training camp that they were having, and so it was
Okay.
good to be able to just touch base and get the guys just get face to face with some of the guys and start to
Mm-hmm.
build some of those relationships. But in terms of just the opportunity and the school itself, like I think Northwestern is the ultimate student athlete experience. I mean, aside from just the culture within the wrestling team that I was able to see just from having the conversations with Storniolo and guys on the team, but also just the success that they've had over the course of not only like history, but even if you just look at the last 3 years, like
Crazy.
in the last 3 years, they've had 26 NCAA qualifiers, they've had a national champ, 7 All-American place finishes, and in the last 6 years, they've gone consecutive with an all. They've gone the last 6 years with at least one All-American. And
Wow.
so, in 2 out of those 3 years, they were in it. They finished in the top 10, and they got five. We have 5 returning national qualifiers coming to the team this year. And so, with it being the ultimate student athlete experience, just from the quality of the education, you get a top 10 education. You're on the biggest stage, the premier conference for
Mm-hmm.
NCAA Division I wrestling, the Big Ten, and I think it's unparalleled opportunities, networking wise, career wise, internship wise, with just our proximity to Chicago and just the alumni base and foundation. So I think it's an amazing opportunity for any student athlete to be a part of.
I mean, it's you think about Penn, and Penn is one of the best schools in the country and the world. And the EIW is great, but the Big Ten, the level of exposure is just everyone could agree it's just a step up. Like or not the EIWA, the Ivy. But it's like Northwestern, you get that academic prowess, but also the exposure and the awesome dual meet schedule, the TV exposure. I mean, it's so much fun to be in a conference that gets that kind of exposure. And so I'm curious though, when you were at Illinois, were you on any teams with Poeta, or he graduated by then? I couldn't remember the overlap.
So I went right away. I went from being a 112 senior pounder my senior year of high school to a starting 125 pounder in the
No,
Big Ten in the Big
no,
Ten at 18 years old. So
you didn't redshirt?
I did not redshirt right away. No, I ended up taking a medical redshirt a few
Yeah,
years later. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the original plan, but I ended up being a guy, and
just
yeah,
went
I,
in there
I was going.
scrapping.
I was going. So that was
But
a
was
big coming through.
so was Poeta like just training? Was he coaching, or he wasn't
No,
even
he
in
was a senior.
Champaign?
It was
He
his
was a
senior
senior.
year.
Okay,
Yeah, he
got
ended
it.
up finishing. He won the Big Tens and ended up finishing second that year. Yep.
Okay, okay. Because obviously he's the head man in Illinois. The when I look at Illinois Northwestern, it's like, all right, who's going to win between those two, and then who's going to go on and try to win the Big Ten battle. So I just think it's awesome that former teammates, you guys are at competing schools now, and it's just going to increase the talent pool here in Illinois to have all those guys back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Big credit to Mike and the things that they're doing in Champaign. We like I think going back to like my like early on, like my freshman year, like the summer coming in, like I think that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. Is that I spent that summer in I went to school early in Champaign. I was taking classes. I was getting used to the workouts, And one of the earliest conversations I remember having with Mike is that he was saying like, "Hey, like we know you're good, we know you're a stud, but like like as you're in the room, like don't feel like this is like your identity. We know you're going to be good, like so don't like." It's
Yeah.
common that some freshmen take some lumps here, you know. And so I really appreciate him just taking the time, and he was a great leader, and it was fun to be on the team with him.
Well, knowing how much confidence and belief you have in yourself, did you ever have moments during that from that summer on where you had any self doubts or any wavering? Just going, how tough that is to go through as a freshman.
Yeah, I think everybody like it's very rare not to. I would say for at times from your confidence to get a little shaky, especially like as you're first, kind of making that transition. I've heard hundreds of guys talk about that on this podcast where guys are struggling to get a takedown for like the first,
Hmm.
few months. That transition from high school to college is it's a big transition. I think now with RTCs and just the quality of coaches that's across the country, I think that that gap is maybe closing a little bit. But for most guys, I would say that's a pretty big transition. So I remember like distinctly, like like after a couple of workouts, like calling my dad, like crying, like man, like I'm getting beat up. Dad, he was like, hey, just stick it out, keep your head up, like keep grinding, you'll get there. And he kept my head in the right place. So
Man, so even BJ Futrell that happens too, because it's a humbling experience, and I mean, you had a lot of success, but coming in just a little undersized, I can imagine that first summer must have been eye opening, just in terms of that next level.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I was planning on redshirting, but I ended up being a guy, so I went right away. But it was a big transition, but it was a big, you know, coming of age, growing to learning experience for me. Like,
Yeah.
being a part of a team with so many local legends, and it was an awesome opportunity.
I mean, you were in that Vegas tournament in December. I mean, so you went right away. I mean, that's crazy to think about. Wow. I did. Yeah, I was going through all the old Illinois records getting ready for this, and it said 2009, and I'm like, man, I thought he would have redshirted. I didn't know like if the dates were wrong, but so you went right
And
away.
I think a lot of coaches like maybe shied away from me from recruiting for that purpose. And I understand, and maybe rightfully so. Like I was 112 pounds as a senior. Like I think a lot of coaches questioned if I would ever be a full size 125 pounder, or at the very least, I was a unicorn. I was going to be a 4 year 120 lifetime 25 pounder, but I end up ending my career at 141.
Wow.
So I'm a big advocate for the underdogs, for the little guys, and I take that perspective into recruiting and when I'm thinking about prospective athletes. But big credit to Carl Perry. He was a big had played a big influential role in me going
Yeah.
out, as well as Mark Johnson and Coach F and Jeremy Hunter. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you had a lot of success on the national scene, right? Like Fargo, multiple time All-American out there. How did you do out there?
I was a 6-time All-American in Fargo.
Wow.
There 3 times. I want to say I only lost to like three three individuals, and two of those individuals happened to be David Taylor and Kyle Dake. So so
Really?
yeah,
Like a
so
freestyle bracket, one of your old freestyle brackets those guys were in?
yeah, I David beat me twice in the finals, and Kyle beat me one time on the way to the finals. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
I didn't
that was
realize that.
didn't get any Fargo stop signs, but I got a couple university stop signs. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah. That's crazy though. That's man, you look back at some of those brackets, it's so fun to look through. Like even like the high school state ones, but yeah, on the national level too. Man. So that even with that, because of you were 112 as a senior, not as many calls as you would have thought maybe.
yeah. I mean, I think obviously the landscape has completely changed from college recruiting from
Oh my God.
to what it is now, and the contact date was a lot later
Yeah.
at that point in time. But yeah, I really didn't get really any calls. But Illinois was a school call period with somebody that he was consistent. He let me know that they wanted me,
Yeah.
and I think it helped that one of my teammates, my high school teammates at the time, Zeke Rowan, who was an Illinois state champion, He had went to Illinois, and
Yeah.
he was in my ear too. So yeah, I mean, it was a dream for me to be able to stay home and represent my home state, and yeah, carry on the pride. But that's why it's even more exciting for me to come back and be in the Chicagoland area and
Yes, sir.
continue to help this program at Northwestern to move forward and reach new heights. I'm excited to work with Storniolo, and yeah, just learn from him. He's very intelligent, very strategic, and
Well dressed. Very well dressed.
What's that?
Very well dressed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Shane Spark too. Like Shane Spark, Benton Never spokesman. He gave me a huge compliment and said that I'm the #1 seed for Big Ten coaches coming into the season for best dress. So hey, I take that with pride. So so I appreciate
Love Shane
that.
Sparks.
Thanks, Shane. Much respect.
My last question, and maybe the most important question, is: does the Northwestern Wrestling Room have a rope for you to climb, BJ? Because if not, I don't know where I'm going to get my inspirational videos. Because, dude, the things you do on the rope, the one hand up the other, it's freaking crazy, man.
Man, I would tell you one of the things that really kind of like made this a compelling opportunity for me is the facilities. It's really insane. They have a $280 million facility that was built in 2017. And
Wow.
it was like the thing that was really amazing to me is that the weight room, it like kind of sits over the lake, and so it sits over like a private beach that's only for faculty, students, and staff. And so as you're working out, not only can you hit the bison, you can go out on the beach,
Get some sun.
and
Okay.
get some sun a little bit. But it's really a phenomenal, amazing. I mean, it's just another level. Like the resources that this program has and their dedication to helping these athletes be able to reach their top end is really exceptional. It's really exceptional. So yeah, fuel bars, refueling stations, recovery stations. Like we have every. I feel one of the things that was really compelling for me to come here and move here and coach, on top of everything else, is that I know this is a place we can win. I know this is a place where we can develop guys, and I'm excited to be able to do that. And that's something that Northwestern has done for years, and excited to be able to take that to another level.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's an honor to have you on the podcast, and it's good just to count you as a friend and to have you back in the land of Lincoln. I'm so excited to have you, BJ. It's been great to have you on the podcast, man. Thank you so much for coming on. When you get here, text me, because I've actually never been to Northwestern facilities, and I live like 4 miles south of Evanston. So yeah. I'm right in Lakeview.
Yeah. And there's also like a $500 million football stadium coming. So
wow.
that's in the works too. But yeah, definitely. Anytime. Yeah, we'll make it happen for sure.
Awesome, man. Good luck to you as you wrap things up, and we'll see you soon, BJ.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Take care.